Hi, John. Welcome back to the XS Noize Podcast.
Hello. Good to be here and to see you. Nice.
Absolutely pleasure to have you, John. Public Image are back with your 11th studio album, End of World. It's a brilliant album. But before we get into that, first of all, I'd like to say how sorry I am about the passing of your wife, Nora, from Alzheimer's in April.
You don't need to go there, and please don't. I take that with a pinch of salt because it just brings up like sad memories. All right, everybody means well, but you know, if you think well beforehand, you wouldn't say it. It's just, you know, brings a tear to my even still, and it always will for the rest of my existence. All right.
How have you been keeping? Have you been keeping okay?
Well, the nights are terrible, aren't they? I'm in a big empty house without her. But, you know, it is what it is. I have to get on with my life. I'm very, very blessed with her because she got to hear this album before she died, and she loved it. Loved it more so than a lot of things I've done. Nora was always my favourite worst critic.
Well, earlier this year, your love letter to Nora, a ballad called Hawaii, you put forward to represent Ireland at the 67th Annual Eurovision Song Contest. It finished fourth in the public vote. Were you disappointed that the song wasn't chosen?
No, because it meant I could go back home to my lovely wife all the quicker. She hadn't died at that point, and performing it live was heartbreaking. I mean, I was in tears doing it. I can't help that. The emotions run high. But what a marvelous show to give us the opportunity to do that. And to be able to show that to her when I sat down with her, when I came back home, was marvelous because she picked the pink suit that I wore and she recognized it. And, you know, that ain't bad for someone with Alzheimer's. But we were very, very close, very close. So it was an irony, but a delicious gift to be able to show that to her and to be able to write a song for her, you know, with that wonderfully sad and yet happy refrain in the song, Aloha, which in Hawaiian means hello and goodbye. And unfortunately, there's a major, major disaster in Hawaii right now. And does that mean I'm banned again? You know, when I did Open Up years ago with Left Field, the record was banned because a week after we made it, Hollywood was on fire and I was accused of profiteering and cashing in. And I hope that don't come round a second time. If anything, I think that song would be very empathetic to the victims in Hawaii. It's a wonderful. It's become a multi-purpose song. Brilliant, like the amount of cheery response, and I mean from cancer societies and all manner of illnesses. They understood what the song was deeply inherently about. Pure love.
Yeah, I love the lyric. All journeys end, some begin again. We're here, you and me.
Yep. All in here. So it's there, it's on the album, but there are 12 other things that are very different in content too.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that. We're definitely going to get to the rest of the album. What made you choose to enter the Eurovision Song Contest initially?
I didn't choose it. It was offered. And it was offered a few years back too. And we wrote a song for it, but the Irish Musical Society, or whatever they call themselves, just went, no. And yet this time it kind of got through. I think there was some understanding because, obviously I've got a lot of Irish friends. They made the panel listen this time to the content of the song. And being a bit of an Irishman myself and a balladeer, it just seemed appropriate. And I love them forever for that. Love them forever for allowing me to do that. Such an act of kindness, and at the same time, because I wasn't realizing it, it is actually a fucking great song.
Yeah, and it's not something that you would expect you to write or for PiL to put out.
Well, then, neither was the first record I ever made as PiL, or everything in between. I don't follow a manifesto. The only thing I hold true to is a sense of values, and as I often say, not morals, because that's too religious for me. Values. I don't rip people off. I tell the truth as I see it, and make what you will therein.
Your mother and father were Irish immigrants. Are you proud of your Irish heritage?
What there is of it, yeah. What there is of it. I'm an old Celt. Hope I spelt that right. Old Celt.
So we're here to talk about the new album.
Same. We're all the same. I've travelled the world. I know this to be true. We are one race, and that's it, the human race. And the longer you live, the more you learn that.
Yeah. It'd be great if everyone realised that.
Yep. Well, it's a shame that what I see coming out of the modern institutions of education, shall we say, are just throwing out mindless robots, just so involved in political theory that they've lost the basic humanities, which is a real shame, and they're putting themselves in direct opposition to common sense. That's a tragedy. And apparently there's the same happening on the right-wing mob. Neither of those work for me. I'm a person of common sense. I need two wings to fly. One is on the left and one is on the right. Right? It's just, that's how it is. I'm in opposition to no one. And I'm a pacifist on top of it. Gandhi was my hero. But he did wear terrible clothes.
Yeah. As I said, PiL are back with the 11th studio album, End of World. Fantastic album. Really been enjoying it. When did the writing process start for the album?
6 years ago. And then Nora's illness, because I took her to the studio, became really, really apparent. And I had to knock it on the head. We all agreed that I couldn't work under that stress. I was still trying to cope with what Alzheimer's was, and didn't even know that's what it was at the time. I thought she was just having mental seizures and etc., etc. And so I dedicated my life to her for these last few years. The COVID thing was a real put off, because I would have been ready to go back in at that point, because I'd worked out what the proper procedure with Nora was. And there it goes. It was juggling all these problems, all these issues, a ridiculous court case from the Sex Pistols. Yes, they took me to court because I wouldn't agree with the mockumentary that they were putting out. All of these problems, but I got through them, and I've got to tell you, the love of Nora and the love she showed me, absolutely, she encouraged me to write. She's always shared that. She loves to read what I'm writing, and so that was a real skillful mindset from her, Alzheimer's or not. God, she was my rock. I'm now going to have to find other rocks to throw.
What is your writing process? Do you write lyrics down, or do you do
chaos?
Lyrics
Chaos. No order to it at all. It's whatever like pops up in my head very quickly. I'll either run off and get one of those instant recorders, or slowly try to pedantically remember what it was I just thought and write it down. A lot of the times, the songs on this album I wrote while washing the dishes, doing the hoovering, and the laundry. because when you take on 24/7 as a carer, that becomes the center of your universe. It's very odd, but it actually helped. I'm surprised more housewives don't write songs. Maybe they do, we just don't give them the chance.
Well, there's so many brilliant songs on the album. Let's talk about some of them. End of World, you say no surrender, no cards here, end of the world, over a brilliant guitar riff by Lou. So what can you tell me about that song, about the process?
Well, first and foremost, because we now are independent of what we call the shitstorm, we're our own label and we only have ourselves to answer to. There's no political intrigue going on. There's no death by committee. That's what I call large record labels, because they make decisions around a table, excluding you from that decision making, and then send a mandate down the line, which you're supposed to adhere to. And if you don't, of course, the money purse, the strings tighten. And that was awful, and having to endure that for so many decades. Now that isn't the case. So we now get to know each other really thoroughly, properly as friends. And the songwriting and music making becomes so much more enjoyable. We're working on our own schedule, to our own pace, and we don't have to please anybody anymore. Not that I ever did, actually, thinking about it. But, well, that's what earned the reputation of me being difficult to work with, because I would disagree bitterly with any kind of dictate from a record label. So there it goes. Now we know each other. It's absolute joy. We're inspired by things that each other do, sometimes clownishly. You know, what you think is a load of old rubbish, what you're doing in the corner, someone will come over and go, I've got something for that. And bingo, life is inbred into it. I think all the songs really show that. And they go through so many different mood changes and subject matters, but each one is truly faithful to its subjects.
One of my favorite tracks on the album is Car Chase, about someone who escapes from a mental institution at night.
Not a mental institution. It's an old folks' home. He was such a character. He's a friend of ours. And he decided like he was still very much a voice of independence, and resented the British authorities locking him up that way. And so he would escape at night. And I certainly don't condone what he got up to, but I understand the free spirit of it. Yes, he would steal cars and rob supermarkets and then go back to the old folks' home and deliver the fabulous line, "It wasn't me." Like Norman wisdom pops into my mind. That sense of freedom, like, I will not be institutionalized. A man after my own heart. Love him for that. And I think very, very worthy of a song.
Yeah, well, you deal with lots of different subject matters over the album, like you said. For example, Northwest Passage, it's a song about the North American Maritime Passage.
Sort of, yes and no, but it's also about the film Northwest Passage and
Right.
A book I used to love as a child called Call of the Wild. So there's a key to it, which at the start, key word, hey, mushy, mushy. Well, that's the dog sleigh team. Like, it's about escaping the problems of imminent death, you know, which is boredom and acceptance into the masses and stupid ideology. I stumbled on that word while cleaning the table. Ideologies. It's just a burst for freedom, a call of the wild. Yeah, fantastic song. Again, Lou's guitaring on this album. Wow. And Bruce and Scott are kicking up rhythms that are so rock solid. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
The freedom we have for knowing that we don't have to argue and squabble with record company execs. It's magnificent. It's a very difficult process being independent, because you have to play live to raise the money to be able to record again. It's that circle, but that is a worthy wagon wheel to be trained on. Yes, love it, love it, love it. Independence. You've got to be able to think outside of the shitstorm. Else you never be able to make records like this.
And it's the longest PiL lineup you've had in years. So you're a real team now.
Yeah, because of that. We're responsible to ourselves. These are my friends. I wouldn't let them down, and I don't think they'd let me down.
What can you tell me about the artwork you created for the album sleeve? Do you get the same enjoyment from painting as you do from music?
Oh, I love painting. It's I wanted to be a writer when I was young, but it wasn't quite satisfying enough. I lacked somewhat in the descriptions, and as soon as I got into a band, that first band, who were magnificent until as of lately, I really, really loved the fact that I could put words to sound. It hadn't quite occurred to me. And wow, excellent. I never turned back. I found that extra gear that just plain writing was missing. And so I naturally got involved with the artwork, and because I was a bit of a painter beforehand. A hobby of mine is painting. It's not a skillful preoccupation. So the paintings are to give you that extra sense that there's more, even more than the words and the music.
The PiL's always been like that. There's always been an amazing design aesthetic, with right back, from their very first album up till now.
Oh, well, it's important, isn't it? It's I suppose it refers also to my clothes sense, in that I like to exemplify the person that I am by what I wear. Now, that might be extremely contradictory outfits from one day to another, but that's how I want to represent myself. And that's what we do with the packaging, the whole thing. But if you ignore that, then you're ignoring responsibility, and you leave yourself open to misinterpretation.
Is there a meaning behind the album sleeve?
Thousands of meanings. Thousands. If the closer you look, the more you'll see. There's all manner of things crammed into that painting.
And who's on the horse?
Is it Johnny Depp?
It could be.
When he played Tonto in that Lone Ranger film. Maybe there's a reference to him there. But he's basically on his horse, standing atop a spinning world, and he's holding on a fishing rod, the possibilities of a better alternative universe.
Nice one. Talking about your first band, LFCF, is about your recent court case, as you mentioned earlier, with the Sex Pistols, about the Pistol series on Disney. You sing, give yourself a story, empty of history, and wrap it up in Mickey Mouse. And you're all liars, fakes, cheats, and frauds. Now, the last time we spoke, the Danny Boy...
That obvious?
The last time we spoke, the Danny Boy and Sex Pistols...
Let me explain. The song itself is about the very first rehearsal the Sex Pistols had.
Right.
Where I was the only one that turned up. No show, the whole lot of them. And I was very angry and bitter and twisted at the time, and also a bit conceited. They're ruining my potential as a poet. I suppose that was creeping in my mind. So the song is a bit of self-mockery on my part to myself. And it's a very English way of insulting people but being kind.
So the last time we spoke,
because there's other songs there Pretty Awful as a Girl, I think, is an even better example of that. It sounds like a non-stop tirade, but hello, that's my part of London. That's the way we talk. A bag of insults thrown at you, and then, but I like you. It's good repartee.
The funny you say that about Pretty Awful. I mean, I've listened to the album quite a lot, but it was only today that song sort of revealed itself to me. It sort of sank in. It's a brilliant track.
It's a love song in disguise, isn't it?
Yeah. But the last time we spoke, the Danny Boyle Sex Pistols drama was about to be released. You hadn't watched it at that stage, so have you watched it since? And what do you think about it?
Yeah. I call it a mockumentary. That's it. Period. The end. It should never have been done without me. They wouldn't show me scripts. They wouldn't show me anything or song placements, and yet demanded my signing off on it, and I wouldn't. So they took me to court, and that's the end result. That pitiful, pathetic thing that joins the ranks of I don't know, the David Cassidy story on VH1. It's got that vibe to it. It just doesn't ring true. And that's just not from just my point of view. I think the other three idiots that were willing to go along with that have been misrepresented themselves. I mean, the characters playing us are just awful, silly kind of public school boys debating, should we use anarchy? Oh, yeah, rather. It's really, really daft.
Look, in hindsight,
ultimately a work of evil. I mean, there's the Disney Corporation backing them, and I find myself as a Sex Pistol fighting a corporation misrepresenting those three. I mean, they really have sold their souls to the devil. Good riddance.
If you had been involved,
hear of them.
Have you had been involved in it, John? What would you have changed? How different would it have looked?
It would have been accurate because the truth would be far, far more entertaining. Absolutely.
So how do you reflect on the impact of the Sex Pistols in the music industry and culture? Did you anticipate the lasting influence the band would have?
Well, let's put it this way. The influence we had, you changed society, but that wasn't due to a drum solo, a guitar solo, or a bass solo. All right? So it's a sad indictment that they've put on a band that really did change the world for the better. It's almost like they resented that. They resented their own history. You can't get more stupid.
What were your ambitions for PiL in the beginning?
To not have a manipulative manager, to not work with people that basically hated me and didn't understand a damn single thing I was writing, and ultimately to work with friends. And Wobble and Keith were very good friends of mine. Again, the record labels got in between us and would spread Chinese whispers, I call it, telling one person one thing, another. And before you know it, you've got divides and divisions. It was always about equality, but some of us got more greedy with that. And then, of course, there was the drugs thing with Keith, which became unbearable. I found I couldn't carry that dead weight much longer. And it took a spell in an Irish jail.
Mountjoy. What was that experience like for you?
To bring all of that to a head. So when I got off that, I went straight into the studio and recorded Flowers of Romance, which, to all intents and purposes, it ended up a solo project. It's a shame. I wanted them there, but no. The only person who was around was Martin Atkins, who only had a day and a half spare before he went off on his Brian Brain tour, which was booked, so that was fair enough. But he laid down some drum loops for me. And so to make up what sounds like a proper drum kit, it's loops on poles spread around the studio, really farting about with a prehistoric technology, I suppose. Very much like what I've seen happening in Jamaica when I first went there in the studios. You know, if everything's broken, well, somehow stick a spanner or a screwdriver in it and make it work. And that do-it-yourself attitude is in us to this day. Yeah, don't blame the equipment.
The PiL's music often explores a wide range of genres, as you said, and experimental sounds. What motivated you to take such a diverse musical direction?
Well, first and foremost, we're a band that don't accept genres or titles or categories. It's all about communication, music, isn't it? And you have to communicate accurately to the subject matter in each song, and that requires a different bed to place it in. Hence, we'll go off in any direction we like. And this album, there's an absolute homage to 70s British pop, which I loved. There's the Do That. That's a nod and a wink to Mud and Tiger Feet. And I'm very, very proud to be able to like slip into that genre and show that it's only part of everything. Bring it in. Don't push it aside and go, oh, punk only, or else you're a sellout. Wrong. That's the influences I had as a young person before I first went into music myself. That and so many other bands, and not much of it really coming out of a New York nightclub scene that never had any records at that time.
Well, the band will be going on tour in the UK and Europe in September and October 2023 this year. Are you looking forward to getting back out onto the road?
Yes, of course, absolutely. My baby will be with me up here. That's all I need to know. And more importantly, get me out of this somewhat lonely house.
And next year in spring, you're doing a spoken word tour. Do you enjoy doing those?
I love them. I love them. You have to be really quick fire and on the ball. The questions can be tormenting or really fun. And I love that knife edge. Like, you know, you can make a complete clown of yourself with this. But I mean, isn't that the joy of life? Like, you know, when you first learn swimming, it's swim or sink. Same thing. I like that a lot. And you kind of, I end up making great friends because there's no script. It's a little chaotic and shambolic, but it's a guaranteed high entertainment. A bit like stand-up comedy with improvisation. But it's all based on the truth. The answers are all truthful questions. Of course, it can waver into what's your favourite colour, at which point I will be lying.
I must score that question out for this interview then.
Well, colours have become political, haven't they? You know.
What's more fulfilling?
I'm
being
Jason,
on stage.
I'm Jason in his multicoloured raincoat. Thank you.
You certainly are. What's more fulfilling, being on stage or being in the studio creating the music?
Before you go on stage, it's absolute fear for me. I'm a bag of nerves and self-doubt and worry, and I fully understand why people become heroin addicts at that point, because you need an escape. But for me, the escape is once I'm on stage, then I'm myself. It's a tormenting process, but it's highly rewarding because you can see in people's eyes, and I love to be able to see the eyes of the audience, that what you're doing means something to them, that you're on the right track. Also, if it's a continual wall of boos, that's enjoyable too.
Do you still get people spitting at you?
Oh, I hope not.
Does that
I
stop?
hope not. Yeah, it should do, because that's nonsense that was propagated by things like the Sun newspaper or the Daily Mirror at the time. They would love to use that in their sensationalism of us. It was meant to be derogatory, and young idiots, of course, picked up on it and read it and thought, oh, that's the thing to do. I mean, it all came from the fact that, well, I had meningitis when I was young, and that affected my sinuses very, very seriously. And so often in between lines of a song, I have to spit or snot something out, but never at people. I always have you'll notice this at a PiL gig, I have a big dustbin that I can't possibly miss.
It's one thing I could never understand.
I'm saying it shouldn't be imitated. That's an illness I have and always will do.
Yeah, I don't know why people do it. And then people that throw beer at gigs, I just don't get it.
Well, there's an awful lot now of people just throwing at anything, and it's what a waste of money to go and destroy the thing you paid to see. You're not making any friends that way, boys and girls. But I've also seen something I've seen on YouTube last night, and it looked to be like it was a girly kind of gig, and they were raiding the T-shirt stall and stealing off it. I mean, are they aware that they're stealing from the acts they paid to see because they love and adore? That's, there's too much of this, having your hands in other people's pockets. Is it out of control? Yeah, and it does need to be controlled. Control your emotions. If you hate yourself that much, stay at home and spit and throw bottles at your own mirror. You get much, much better results.
I'm going to put you in the spot with the next couple of questions, John. If you were to recommend one of PiL's albums to someone who had never heard the band before, apart from the new album now, what album would you tell them to start with?
That's an impossible question, isn't it? Impossible. I would recommend you first listen to Alvin Stardust, the Alex Harvey Band, Atomic Rooster, Neil Young Zuma, Captain Beefheart, reggae, the proper good original dub stuff, and everything made in British pop. And then you might have a good indication of what you're about to hear.
Okay, well, here's one for you. If I wanted to make a playlist of the best 5 PiL songs, what are the 5 songs I should have on there?
You couldn't possibly, because it would be more like 400. I can't pick and choose. It's unfair to ask anybody that. That would imply the rest were of lesser importance. And for me, every single word has to matter. Every single note, every single cacophony, they're there deliberately. And they're there for an overall emphasis. It's like, for me, I like to make albums that should be listened to all the way through. Every song on it, not just snippets. Otherwise, you're not grasping the bigger picture. And every song I write is another piece of the jigsaw puzzle as to what the fuck is it I'm going on about.
I read recently that you have a stalker. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You currently have a stalker?
Yeah, I can't talk about it because it's in the hands of the police, but it couldn't be at a more inappropriate time in my life.
Yeah, surely you've had a few stalkers over the years.
Yeah, I have, but in light of my current loss and situation, it's really, really hard to bear. It hurts. Not even feeling free about being able to sit outside and fucking cry without somebody trying to grab me and tell me they're my daughter or whatever. They're closing down my freedom for their right to believe a fantasy, which takes us to the woke mob. Convenient segue there for you.
Yeah, well, just a few more questions, Shaun. Looking back on your career, is there a particular moment or achievement that stands out to you as the most meaningful or memorable?
Personally, yes, a few. But as a band, all of it, because we've managed to continue and exist in a world that doesn't like independent thinking. Doesn't at all. That society seems to be demanding right now, more so than ever, is completely left-wing thinking or completely right-wing thinking. And there's no communication going on. It's just all yelling and screaming and hatred, all extremely pointless and to the detriment of us as a species. And that's really what the title of the album is dealing with, End of World. If we don't learn to have empathy for those that think completely different things than us, then it will be the end of world. As a species, we will cease to develop. Our differences are what make us important and relevant. Mass conformity and uniformity, whether one way or the other, is not an ambition to be seeking. Don't be a slave to the shitstorm. Don't be cannon fodder for any arsehole. And don't follow political beliefs with such gusto that they're to the detriment of others. They're just new forms of religion. And we know where man-made religions have taken us in the past. The division is overwhelming. This us and them, this is where we're going so wrong. It should be us and all of us. Divided, we will fall. I don't mean to be ranty about it, but these are my beliefs.
No, crack on.
Good.
What is the answer to the question? What is your sort of, if you look back and go, right, well, I really enjoyed that. This was a real highlight of my career.
Well, I suppose, bloody hell, I'm actually playing Northern Ireland after all those decades.
That was a great gig. I was there last year.
It was a fantastic, friendly atmosphere, you know. And let's face it, Northern Ireland's publicity machine preceded it. Much like my own.
Well, unfortunately, it's not
all
on
that
the
negativity proved to be a lie. It felt to me like a family affair. I felt I'd come home. Magnificent. North and South were there, East and West, even some Polish tourists.
So why are you not playing there in this tour?
I suppose the Polish were a hangover from when they rioted in Belfast a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So why is it not on the tour list this time around?
Lack of availability, can't get the halls. This is the major problem. It was the same last year. After the COVID lockdown, everybody's booked everything. You'd think I'd have a name that could pull and guarantee a studio. No, it's now everybody needs the money and they'll take the booking from anyone. And so you have to join a queue and a list. Eventually we will be there. But it's like all tours with PiL. We start out with a set number of dates and then we expand.
Well, good. Hopefully you do.
Yeah, I'll expand as much as my beer belly is.
If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Well, it would have been the first Sex Pistol rehearsal that they never turned up to.
Well, it did eventually.
No, as I was saying earlier, I marched off down to that place in South London with such high hopes for myself, sitting on the subway going, well, I know I'm going through hell to get there, and all manner of danger on the London Underground, dressed like the lunatic I usually am, and thinking, oh, when they get a load of me, it's going to be just marvelous. And none of it happened. So, of course, I want that again and again and again, because it slaps you back down into reality. And that's very much exposing my true nature, in that I don't see too many negatives. I just see them as waiting to be positives. It's something my mum and dad always instilled in me is don't let the bastards grind you down, and don't wallow in self-pity, because that'll get you nowhere. All you're doing is arming your enemies. Make the best of whatever it is in front of you that you're given work. And I have done, and all them illnesses from my childhood. I had to relearn to read and write. I had to relearn who my parents were. Took 4 years to do that, but hello, God works in mysterious ways, because without all of that, I wouldn't be the same person I am here today. So that's a positive, yes.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like in that 4 years, you know, where you didn't really know who your parents was? How was that? How did that feel?
Hell on earth. Isolation and total fear all the time. But there's the positive in that helped me understand Nora's Alzheimer. Now, I had the prospect of recovering. I didn't know that at the time, but I did. I recovered. But I knew Nora wouldn't. I knew it would get worse and worse for her. And so I was able to have the empathy of experiencing just a touch of what it was she was going through. And I really, really loved looking after her in that way and making her days better. It's the most fun we've ever had. And it kept her alive and alert. And so to all Alzheimer's sufferers, it's not just the victim, the patient themselves, but it's the whole family wrapped around it. They're suffering too. Don't just wheel them in front of a TV and think that's going to just fill up a day and you could go off and do what you like. No, share the experiences with them, and you'll find that really rewarding, because they will be remembering things, their brains working, and the look of joy on their face when they notice something, they make a connection. It's magnificent. It's the best gift in the world, that. And I had 6 or 7 years of that. Nothing but joy, ultimately, and now a tragic loss, which I should have been able to prepare better for, but I didn't, and I can't. But I see the possibilities of not neglecting a human being as being far more rewarding. Now, not everybody in this planet can afford to do that. There's multiple reasons for it not to happen. I'm blessed that I had enough cash put aside to be able to do that. But I've learned a lot, and those gifts I want to share in the future when I have time off. I'm very, very empathetic to it. I suppose, really, I was reliving the tormented side of my childhood, but with a better point of view through Nora, for want of a better psychological answer to it.
And what do you do now? How do you get your days in these now?
Getting fit. Right? There was a period there for 3 months solid of just non-stop drinking, and I wasn't getting drunk, and it wasn't helping push the sadness away, and I stopped, and that was hell. Right? But I'm getting better, and I'm focusing more on doing things right rather than selfishly saddened. Right? if Nora's around and she's looking at me, the last thing she wants to see is me crying into a bottle of whiskey. But it's a thing you definitely have to do. I'll tell you, you have to go through that. You have to do that because it's just too overwhelming otherwise. So it's a series of ladders, steps up the ladder until you get where you need to be, which is now I can deal with the sadness sometimes, not always. But I know that's what I have to do because I've been given the gift of life and I'm certainly not going to take my own life. Thank you, God. I like what you've done for me. Endless problems. But that's the way it's supposed to be. Face the challenges. Face them. And wake up every morning knowing that you haven't lied. That's a very good feeling.
And are you spending time with people during the day and the evenings, or are you going out and about? No,
mostly alone. Mostly alone. Neighbours are friendly, all of that stuff. And the weekends, my brother and his wife and their kids come over, and their noisy ass dogs. But that's good too. But I prefer the being alone moments. So I have to get mentally fit now because my family wasn't just Nora or my brothers or whatever. It's also the audience that come to see PiL. They're very much a part of my life. And I know they care about me and I care about them. And let them know that very much alive and kicking. I'm only fucking 67, you cunts.
Just a couple more, John. You've been famous for a long time now. What's the
infamous longer?
What's the most stupid thing you've ever bought?
I'm still buying toys. Well, I never had many when I was young. Well, there was many reasons for that, but I mean, illnesses, of course. Basically, we were too poor. But now I've gotten into collecting. I'll just show you for a laugh. London buses in tins.
Wow.
These ones had Scottish biscuits, all eaten, of course. I like the ones with toffees. They're all over the house, and I like them because they're tins. All right, there's a hobby. Yeah, Johnny got one.
And you're a lover of books. Are there any books you've been reading recently that you could recommend?
There's books all over me. At the moment, learning Japanese. I'm absolutely rubbish at it, but I can read a menu in Japanese fluently. And a French one, so that's telling you something. I may be fat, but I'm well fed. I know my culinary delights.
So last one, John. What are you most grateful for being able to do what you do every day?
Yeah, well, I've had to fight for that, haven't I? And I suppose what I enjoy most was the fight to maintain a sense of independence from the shitstorm. Yeah, that brings me a sense of joy. I know it could all fall flat on my face in a flying fart second, but you know, hello, God, I've given it a fucking good go, and I. You know, I'm not a physical fighter at all. As I said, Gandhi is my hero, but I am mentally inexhaustible. And my enemies know this to be true. Hugs and kisses, enemies.
So, John, is there anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Can't wait to get started, really. Yeah, I again, it's that same sense of fear. I hope I don't let people down. But I find that to be a really enjoyable kind of torture. I've read a lot of books of mostly actors on this subject of stage fright and how they deal with it. Fantastic. I've learned a lot from actors. Mind you, they go on and do something false and fake. But it's the same kind of thing. You need to charge the batteries with all that negativity before you can go out and do something positive. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and let's face it, the chance to be on stage and tell it as it is in your own existence in the most honest way you can, that's a reward. That's worth it.
Well, hopefully we'll see it in Belfast or Dublin at some stage down the road.
Yes, don't bring your own bombs.
Yeah.
The only bomb there will be me.
Absolutely.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. I know. Bad humour.
Just don't be wearing a bomber jacket either.
Oh. Very good. I do love corny jokes and bad humour.
Well, John, that's brilliant. That's me done. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again. Love the album.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you a bad joke then, shall I?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
What's red, sticky, and screams?
Don't know.
A baby sucking a razor blade. Now, tell me that's not the worst joke ever.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah. That's why I'm not a stand-up comedian. All right. So, may your road rise, your enemies always be behind you, may they scatter, flatter, batter, and shatter.
All right, John. Peace. Take it easy. Peace.
And if you don't believe in peace, you can peace off. Thank you,
Have a good day, John.
Good to talk to you.
Yep. Likewise. Have a good day, John.
I will not.
Well, I hope you do. Take it easy.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, John.
Bye-bye.